Hello and welcome to the first ever recorded video bout of unboxing. Today my sparring partner is Dougie Critchley. Now Dougie works for the YouTube channel Football Daily and has been, I believe, for a few years now. He's been a big football fan and a big Sunderland fan specifically from quite a young age. And we actually went to, I think I'm right in saying that he was quite a high achiever throughout school and university, which we'll dive a bit deeper into. And then we actually came across each other at university. And it was actually at university, he set up a very cool event concept called Aggression Sessions, which was like a student boxing night, which I want to ask him about. And I think Dougie, when he finished uni, he wanted to go into journalism, and specifically sports journalism was always what he wanted to do, but he never thought it'd be in the kind of YouTube space. He thought it'd be in the more kind of traditional journalism space, hopefully not speaking out of turn. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to sort of diving a little bit more into that today and how those two kind of worlds compare. And see where it goes and catch up with Dougie, because I haven't spoken to him in a couple of years, like at length. But yeah, without any further ado, please welcome to the ring, Dougie Critchley.
I love it. Yeah, good. Thank you very much for having me on, Harry. Yeah, as you say, I mean, the last time we bumped into each other tends to be at Selhurst Park watching Crystal Palace.
Was it at Selhurst Park? I'd actually completely forgotten about that.
Yeah, I think
I'm glad that makes me look like a good Crystal Palace fan. That.
Yeah, you guys were always sitting in the row, a couple of rows behind where my girlfriend's dad's got his season ticket. So we'd occasionally seen you and struggle through Palace games together, really. But yeah. Great atmosphere there.
So were you watching? Do you just enjoy kind of watching any game? Or...
Yeah, for sure. I was just enjoying the free tickets and the fish and chips at half time. And Selhurst Park's awesome. Any football fan in London, you need to go to Selhurst Park. The atmosphere is incredible.
100%. It's sort of like there's this weird sense of, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm like a diehard Palace fan. I'm not gonna put myself in that category, but like there's this weird sense of pride of being like a Palace fan, just because the atmosphere is like unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we're sort of known to have this group of kind of ultras who sit in one corner of the stand and just really,
with their shirts off and their drums. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really weird. Like even when I went to South Africa, and weirdly, like in South Africa, they're huge on Premier League football. Like it's insanely big, even though like none of them have ever really been to a game. And even they know that Crystal Palace has this like incredible sort of cauldron-like atmosphere, and that's kind of what it's known for. So it is really cool to go along to a game and soak up that true British footballing.
For sure, I'm impressed it's made it to South Africa. That's amazing.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they do also laugh at like me supporting Palace because they think anyone outside the top 5 is like rubbish.
Yeah, why not Arsenal? Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But no, thanks for giving up your time on this on the day that the pubs reopen.
Yeah.
Sure, you've been looking forward to this day for a long time.
I have actually, although I've been kind of enjoying getting drunk in parks actually.
Yeah.
Hell of a lot cheaper. Although there is just always the issue of where to go to the loo is always the big problem. Particularly if you're a girl. Like we've had quite a few evenings like with a group of us and girls just having to go to like bushes that just don't have enough coverage, and I do feel pretty sorry for them.
the old human coverage needs to come. Yeah. What have you been struggling with that at all? Have you just been kind of fairly,
I think you just got to go for it.
Gets a little bit less.
Exactly. As soon as darkness falls, just get on with it, really.
Yeah, that's it. Awesome. Well, look, I'm really kind of just interested in. It's always interesting, like getting people in the ring, because I kind of know the 2D you, or like from your Instagram page and stuff, and like I kind of generally know what's kind of going on, and you shaved your head and you look like Pep Guardiola, for example.
Well, yeah, in my dreams, yeah.
Yeah. As charismatic, let's say that. But yeah, so like in the last sort of few days, I actually watch a few videos that you've done and looking at your LinkedIn page, and so I actually get like a more kind of 3D look, but and then this will hopefully even go, 4 or 5D, Doug.
Oh, here we go.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to learning more about your journey and some of your perspectives. But maybe if you could start off by just kind of maybe from your early days and like how football became a big thing for you, how sports became a big thing for you, and then we'll move on to kind of like school and university and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I come from a sort of sport obsessed family. My brother, sister were all really into sport. We did a lot of rugby, tennis, cricket growing up. And then football really took hold because it's on my mum's side, Sunderland's like a family club. So my granddad used to work for the club in the 80s. He was actually on the board as like a media man. He's not like a football man, like his football knowledge is pretty terrible. But he was on the board as like sort of, media relations. He used to have a stake in local newspapers, so they effectively got him on to help their sort of comms. So it's a family link to Sunderland. My dad wasn't particularly into football, but my uncle was slightly into it. But me and my brother, it really took hold. And it was actually through Football Manager, really, or Championship Manager 0304. So we used to have that on this old PC. And my brother, being 3 years older, was always allowed to run it, as in he would be the manager and I'd be his assistant. So what I'd have to do was go and scout for him, like in newspapers and like Match magazine and that sort of thing, about players that we should buy. And I must have been about 6, 7, and he was probably closer to 10. So in order to impress him and get some time actually on the mouse, I'd have to bring in like the sort of caliber of player we were looking for our Football Manager save. So that sort of really took hold. And then, Sunderland, I mean, it was a really exciting time for Sunderland in the early 2000s. We were actually quite good back then, not like the absolute disaster we are now. We were sort of upper echelons of the Premier League, and it was a great time to be a football fan. Like Thierry Henry and Arsenal, and then that Chelsea side under Mourinho. Like it was a really gripping time, and it just really took hold. And I've been a massive football fan from there, really. And equally, there's some football fans that are their club first and foremost, and then football. Whereas I think I'm just very happy just watching any team, just taking it in as much as possible. But yeah, it has been pretty bleak in the last few years for Sunderland, so it's been a bit of a test.
Yeah, it's that Championship Manager. What a game that is!
It's so good
for it to have algorithms where it's actually worth you going off and researching the real life players.
Yeah.
Was that just a bit of bravado from you, or was that like a genuine thing? Like you actually had to.
Well, I think it was in order to, everyone wants time on the mouse. Everyone wants to be the guy in charge. My brother just wouldn't let me unless I earned my stripes, really. So I had to go out and do it. And I remember it was around sort of 2006. I had to buy Martin Jol, who used to be the Spurs manager, his handbook. And he'd do teams from he'd do all the players from like Paraguay, Colombia. So I was suddenly like, oh, I've got a wealth of knowledge now. Fergus is going to be so impressed. I bring up some 20-year-old Paraguayan who'd kill it for Sunderland on our Football Manager save.
So that it's such a good way of getting like an in-depth knowledge.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it really does grip you. Although quite worryingly, it gripped me again during lockdown. Big time.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, so I re-downloaded
it. 0304 or the new one?
No. The 2020 version. And I was doing a save with Inter Milan. And I realised after a long time of playing it that you can see how long you've actually been playing the game. And I'd been playing for 9 days and 22 hours.
I was just in lockdown?
Just in lockdown. And I was just like, at that stage, I found it, I was quite proud, but also quite ashamed, really, that I'd been playing for 9 days.
Roller Coaster Tycoon hours.
Yeah, I saw that on your Instagram. How did that go?
Getting back in, again, it's one of these games that was just way ahead of its time, like
a true pioneer.
Yeah, the programmers really do need a knighthood. Like they weren't quite appreciated for what they did, and you can go back 15 years on, it's still a great game that teaches you about business. But awesome. So I guess that kind of fostered your like early love for football, I guess. And then so how did that kind of transition? Did you play a lot of sport at school and uni? Like, what was your?
Yeah, so I did play quite a lot of, I played a lot of sport at school in particular, particularly rugby. Rugby was always my best sport. I'm actually not very good at football at all. I'm like a six-a-side player, nothing special. I used to be a
Manager only.
striker, but my team just told me to stand at the back. So now I just stand at the back, mopping things up.
Yeah.
It's quite frustrating actually, because I understand the game quite well. So I know where I should be and where I should pass and like how I should move, but I just can't do it physically. So yeah, it's always been quite depressing. But yeah, I played a lot of rugby, like tennis, cricket, hockey at school, and then at uni played rugby just for my college. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. But yeah, never been a massive footballer per se, but it's always been the sport that sort of gripped me more. Just in terms of it's so accessible, so you can play sort of anywhere, and then just the size of the sport as well just really grabs you in. The fact it's so tribal, the money in it as well is really attractive. The players moving for millions of pounds. As like a 10-year-old boy, I just couldn't get my head around the fact that Didier Drogba was signing for Chelsea for 24 million at the time. Yeah. And then it was like Andriy Shevchenko, all these players moving for massive money. And just the standard in the Premier League as well at the time was just amazing. And the whole sort of celebrity that builds up around players. I mean, as a starstruck sort of 10-year-old, reading about Steven Gerrard and his heroics every week, Frank Lampard, David Beckham, there's just so much to sort of entice you in, and I've just never really left.
Yeah. And I hate to sort of embarrass you and bring out, but I did notice on your LinkedIn that you were actually head boy of your school. So I guess the sort of journalism, speaking to audiences route, was that kind of on your radar, do you think, from that age even?
Yeah, I think so. I was lucky enough to go to a school where there was quite a lot of there was like house debating. Yeah. So you could like argue on a range of topics. And I was always quite up for that. I come from my family have always been quite keen on like taking the piss out of each other, on debating different issues. So I've always been quite comfortable speaking like my mind and speaking up in front of a crowd, as it were. And then, yeah, when I was head boy at school, which I'm very embarrassed that you found, I had to do quite a few speeches at various events and that sort of thing. And like show parents around the school. I mean, it wasn't the most glamorous role. You're basically just an advert for the school is the idea, really. But you just mainly doing a bit of speaking. So yeah, it sort of got into it from there. And then at uni, I also did quite a bit of presenting there as well. I was asked to do the uni fashion show and that sort of thing, which was comparing that, and I did that with my great friend Angus, which was just a lot of fun. We just took the piss out of each other on stage and ripped into some other people. Probably a bit too much. We did have one girl crying, but you learn on the job about what's the level of acceptability and on how to take the piss out of people, and it definitely learned quite a lot.
Yeah, just to frame for anyone who doesn't know about kind of, we went to Durham University, and fashion shows are weirdly quite a big thing there.
Yeah,
the uni fashion show, to actually compare that is a pretty big thing. Like, what is there about? Back when you were doing it, it's what, 500 people per night, or maybe?
Yeah, I think it's 2 nights of about 500 people, and as you say, they are weirdly big at Durham. Everyone gets very excited for it. To be a model in it is supposedly a great honour, and everyone takes themselves very seriously in the organising committee, and it's a big deal. So no, it was fun doing that, but we probably crossed the line on some of the things we talked about. But
the compares definitely keep it lighthearted. It's funny because on one side you've got like these models taking it way too seriously, committee taking it way too seriously, but then like the crowd and the compares basically just taking the piss out of it all.
Yeah, I mean, we got. I mean, it sounds so Durham, this story, but someone actually threw a wheel of brie at us on stage. Like it's a bit of it's just absolute chaos, really.
Yeah, like completely stupid. But yeah, I don't know where I was originally going to go with that. But yes, carry on. Where were you at?
Oh, so that was just chatting about how I got into presenting and debating and that sort of thing. And then after Durham, I was basically quite determined in the third year that I was quite determined that I didn't want to do what I had in my mind as like a very standard office job. My brother works in insurance, and he absolutely loves it, but it's not really for me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do something slightly different, something more sort of person related.
I was
And
going
actually, weirdly, it only came to me in third year sports broadcasting. And it was like a weird sort of light bulb moment. I'd never thought of it, but it married like my sort of love of sport and my I quite enjoyed being on stage and sort of performing, as it were, as well. So it seemed like a perfect mix.
Yeah. The thing I was remembered just before that I was going to say was I actually tried to compare one of the college shows so a lot smaller, but it is really hard. Like I did it with a friend and we thought we were absolutely like nail it. And it, like nothing from the room, jokes just going completely down level.
Really?
Yeah, it was tough.
Oh, I wish I'd seen that.
Good character building. But anyway, what I was going to ask you about just before we go on to sort of the after uni, because there was another kind of, again, a black tie event, very Durham. But there's an event called Aggression Sessions, which I mentioned in the intro, which is this kind of student boxing event where anyone who, you know, fancies themselves at stepping into the real ring, not the unboxing ring, and like genuinely going some rounds as an amateur boxer with other students, which obviously like makes for a great spectacle for sort of obvious reasons. But you obviously set that up, so I just wanted to like ask like how you got the idea for that. Like I must say, like it's a very impressive, like it's a really impressive event concept, and I mean it's still going to this day. I think it's raised what, like it raised 40 grand for charity. Like last year is like, I mean that must be like quite a cool feeling, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean they've now done it a lot better than we did. They've raised a hell of a lot more. But you know, it's not all about that really. But yeah, it was not just me. It was a massive team effort. So I set it up with 4 other friends. So there was 5 of us, and it was the start of second year, and none of us. I mean, we were all, you know, I wouldn't say I'm like an academic. I enjoyed my course, but like I wasn't like, you know, slaving away 9 till 5 in the library every day. I sort of did enough to get by, get a 2-1 and sort of get out. But I wanted we all wanted to sort of do something a bit more. And like we were far from the only people, like student boxing events is not a concept we came up with ourselves by any stretch. They do them in all like loads of different unis. And we'd seen the success of one in Edinburgh. One of my friends fought in one in Oxford. And we just thought, let's do it. And then the idea of the name Aggression Sessions, which I think was one of the key like selling points. It's quite a cool sounding name. I say so myself. It came from, there's a night in Notting Hill Carnival every year called Regression Sessions. Right. And I saw that being advertised. And then, we came up with the name from there. Yeah. But it was great. We got it was about 20 students every year, which whistled down to about 6 different fights. And they trained for like 6 months. They trained really hard actually. And then it was 3-minute rounds. And it was always a bit sketchy in terms of like insurance and that sort of thing. Like we were always a bit concerned like we were going to go down if someone had a really serious accident. And there was always we had the boxing coach, the second year we did it, was supposed to organize the ring. Like that was his job, was to get the ring in. And he was like, I run all these events, don't worry, I'm going to get you the ring. We arrive on the day and Paul, who we nicknamed Scabbers, hadn't organized the ring. And we were like, we've got hundreds of people coming in a few hours. Like, where is the ring, Paul? And the amount of stress that you got when you're just like, we're going to have to cancel the event. It's just going to be so embarrassing. All this money's been raised for charity. These boxers have trained for months. And we're going to have to cancel the event. So it definitely gave us a few like sort of heart and mouth moments. And then when we left, we were basically thinking about bringing it down to London, where most of us then moved on to. Yeah. But actually, I think it was Ollie, one of the guys on the team, was particularly keen on handing it on to the year belows, as it were, and set up a new committee. And actually, I'm so glad we did, because I think we raised 4 grand in our first year and 7 grand in our next year. So we raised a fair bit for charity. And I think it was Help for Heroes in both years and a cancer research in the second year as well. But they've now taken it on leaps and bounds. And it's a much sort of larger slicker event than it used to be. And I think they've now raised, I think it's about 70 grand across the 5 or 6 events, which is, it's a great thing to have sort of left
and
as
potentially
a legacy.
sort of sparked interest for people's like boxing, like actually wanting to do that more after uni and stuff. There've been people that have gone on and done more. Do you know?
Yeah, it definitely sparked interest, to be fair. And I think it was great that we made sure that anyone could take part if they wanted to, pretty much, like as long as you were in the right weight category. And we had girls take part. We had loads of girls that were interested in it. In our second year, there was actually more girls training than boys. And they absolutely loved it. The girl fights were always like, really keenly supported, like very, very much like just on a level playing field. And everyone seemed to really enjoy that as well. So no, it was a great time. And I'm really glad we did it. And it was a good way of filling the time at uni, because if you're not like absolutely engrossed in your course, having something on the side like that and trying to organize that is I think quite a good experience.
It's really interesting you brought that up, because I can really resonate with what you were saying. Like for me, my degree was kind of, I didn't really know it at the time, but my degree was actually like, I was just kind of getting it done, bare minimum. I almost knew deep down I wasn't going to use really my degree, like, even though I didn't know what I was going to do. But it was always the things like slightly extracurricular you do. And Durham's actually, and all unis actually, are like, I think are really interesting places to almost like test or just start something. Because you've got this almost, especially Durham, you've got this kind of bubble of like, obviously like there's the story of Facebook starting at a college campus in the US, and it's like you've almost got this bubble of the real world where you can like get an idea to market really quickly, and just kind of like once you share it with your friends, like it's a really cool way of starting it. And like I think, do you think there could be potentially like more geared up towards like people who have like an entrepreneurial tendency to like from your experience, was there much set up? Like, did you feel like it was well supported, you doing something extracurricular like that? Or like, what was your experience like setting something up? Like, did you feel like people were just like, come on, mate, just like focus on your degree? Or
shut up, please stop talking about boxing. No, I think I couldn't agree with you more. I think because it's such a small uni, and there's like not that many, nightclubs, there's not that much going on in terms of events outside of ones put on by your college. I think there was a real appetite for something new. And Durham is obsessed, I think it's almost too much how obsessed they are with black tie events. And we tried to make it like suits in our first time we did it. And the amount of feedback we got was just being like, we want to wear black tie. And it was just like, this is the most entitled thing ever. But so we did eventually make it black tie. But yeah, there was a real appetite for it. And people seem to really enjoy, people making an effort to put on entertainment for them. I had quite a few friends in my college who set up nights and like events and various different things. And there was everyone was always very supportive, as you say, in setting up something new and something a bit different and maybe a bit outside the box as well.
Yeah, 100%. Love it. So maybe if you carry on from, so you'd obviously done that. Had you passed it on kind of before you'd left Aggression Sessions, and then how did you then transition like out of uni? You obviously realised you wanted to do sports journalism. Like, how did you find that, the dreaded first year out of uni?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think people don't really talk about it enough, what it's like actually leaving uni. I mean, obviously you get such a high of you finish your exams, you've got all your celebrations with your mates. It seems like a really exciting time, but actually I think for a lot of people it's really daunting, and I definitely felt that as well. You're just like out on your own. I knew I wanted to do sports broadcasting, but I had actually no sort of ins with that world really. I mean, my parents were fantastic in terms of helping me get work experience when I was younger, and really supportive, but they don't know anyone in sports broadcasting. I mean, very few people do. So what ended up happening was I emailed a family friend's cousin's friend. I mean, it was really that tenuous, who ran a website called the Chiswick Calendar, and it still exists to this day. And it's a great website. It does like local news in Chiswick, like cat stuck up tree, book sale on at 4 p.m. on Saturday, that sort of, cutting edge news in Chiswick. and I asked whether I could come along and like do whatever for them. And they were awesome. It was like a unpaid internship for a couple of months really, which I was in a fortunate position to do because I could live with my sister. So, but it was a bit, as much as I enjoyed it and they showed me the basics of editing, which has come in very handy with my job now. I was a bit like, after a month, I was just like, this is not what I imagined. I think I just had this deluded idea that I'd be in, you know, Sky Sports' studio in a month or two, or, you know, you just waltz onto some radio show and start producing something or whatever.
Yeah.
Just, you know, I'd never had the concept that things don't just, you know, I sound spoiled, but sort of land at your feet. I'd always been quite lucky in school. I'd then gone on to uni. I'd done fine at uni. I'd finished that. And then jobs, you're just like thrown into this massive world and expected just to land on your feet. And I certainly didn't. So I worked at the Chiswick calendar for a couple of months. My big opportunity was watching, it's called Prudential Ride London. It's this big cycling race, which goes through London every summer. And at the time, I think it was Bradley Wiggins and Chris Froome were in it. And Bridget, my boss, was like, go down to Chiswick Bridge and report on it coming over and we'll make a piece. But me and the cameraman were sort of dicking about, and we were filming against the bridge. We were doing a sort of piece to camera, and we thought we timed it quite well for the cyclist to come over. And then I could just see in the distance over the cameraman's shoulder, I was like, shit, there's Chris Froome and all the lads, and here they are, and we are not set up. So we had to quickly like dash in a 180. And I was trying to present live when I hadn't practiced this bit at all, as the men were coming streaming past. I was almost getting hit by the cyclists. And I was just like, this, for a sporting debut, this has gone disastrously. And to make it worse, my shirt had popped open a button and there was so much chest hair on show. It was an absolute car crash of a first experience. Which my friends then laughed about for months when I put it on.
Get me back to insurance. Get me in the
yeah, exactly. And I was just like, this is not what it's cracked up to be. But it also gave me a taste of how things can go wrong in shoots, and you can't really wait. I mean, that was basics. You should just face the right way that they're coming, and just be pre-prepared. But yeah, you can't really predict what's going to happen.
Prepare to fail and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I worked there a couple of months, and then Bridget was like, have you considered doing this course? And I, at that stage, hadn't considered doing a master's. I don't really know why. And it was like late August by this stage. And I messaged them. It was at City of London, and it's a very well thought of course. And I wanted to get on it, but I thought I was too late. And I messaged them. They were like, no, we're full up for this year. You can come back next year. And I was like, oh, that is so annoying. But then I went home to Scotland that weekend, and I got an email on the Saturday being like, someone's dropped out. If you can do an application in the next 3 hours, you can get the place. So I was like, I was actually playing golf at the time. So I was like, sack the golf. I mean, I'm useless at that as it is. Get off the golf course, need to get to the computer, wrote an application. And I think they were going to take anyone at that stage. And then I started on the Monday. So from like bumbling along in Chiswick, getting things wrong all the time, I was enrolled in a master's, like a pretty well thought of master's, and I was back to sort of student life again. And that master's was phenomenal. The amount of experience they give you in editing, you work in radio, it's called broadcast journalism at City, as I said, and you do a bit of TV. Every week we're sent out to North London to report on various news stories. So occasionally it'd be like on a knife crime, it'd be on a local incident. We also had to report on the Manchester City bombings at the Ariana Grande concert. So it was like real life experience, and it was a real step up from the book sales in Chiswick. Having said that, there were still moments where you were just like, what am I doing? I mean, when you're trying to find a news story on a Wednesday in the morning for it to be then shot in the afternoon and done, I mean, sometimes you were really scraping the barrel. I mean, we went to Toilet of the Year, had just been announced, and it was this toilet in North London. And so I went to go report next to the toilet while men were coming in to try and use it, etc. It was not as glamorous as it seemed.
What was the toilet? What was?
It was pretty nice, to be fair. I think it was like golden flecked, but I couldn't really see like the big hype. It was in a pub in North London, which I wish I could remember the name of. And the
ridiculous PR campaign for the pub.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how much competition there was for this prestigious title. But yeah, it was just a PR operation, really. I mean, it was just a run of the mill. I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10 if I had to. I don't think it was toilet of the year though. But then who knows what it is. So, but yeah, that course was amazing.
Like, look how shit my life is, and
yeah, yeah, exactly. Flush away your worries. The toilet of the year or whatever.
What I was kind of going to ask you about was, it's in a way you're almost like a step ahead of the game. Even like, obviously you've got all these challenges, and it's not easy, and there's struggles and stuff. But the fact that you were pretty sure you knew what you did want to do as an end game is like massively helpful. I think a lot of people, and I certainly have, struggled with. I just don't have a fucking clue what I want to do. So it's like choosing a master's or like choosing the next step is actually like really difficult. Like how do you think you came to the realization that sports broadcasting was for you? Is it just a case of like knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses? Like, was it about testing? I guess you had, even like in your school and uni career, like you'd actually tried a lot of stuff. Like, I think it comes from like just trying shit. Like, you've got to just try stuff and be like, okay, I'm not great at that. Like, and I'm better at that. Like, can you elaborate on how you got to the point of like, right, that's what I want to do, and now it's just a case of going out and finding a way to do it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think a lot of people, particularly if you go to a uni like Durham or just any uni at all, feel like they need to get onto a very well-paid job or a paid job pretty quickly, and they don't necessarily think about what their interests are. And I was always determined, like, to not be motivated by money, and to actually do something that that made the hours pass by a lot quicker. And because no one's 100% happy with their job all the time. Basically, you want to find a job that you're 8 out of 10 happy with the majority of the time.
Yeah.
And that really, ticks all the boxes for you personally. Yeah. And I was not that determined very determined not to go into a city job and just have long lunches, leave the office at 11 p.m, talk to seedy bosses. Like, it just wasn't for me. So I was quite determined to do something that I found really interesting and that I thought I was quite good at. I mean, I still have a load to learn. I'm definitely not, finished article or whatever. You learn every day on a job like this, or in any job really. But yeah, it was just a determination to do something a bit different, and just sort of follow your heart. And I think my parents have always been pretty supportive of, do what makes you happy. And they've said that with school all along. They said that with uni. They say it now every day. Like, there's no point wasting your life waiting for something good to happen in your job. Like, if you're not enjoying your job, why are you doing it? Like, there's the fundamental of that. Unless you're, very well paid, or you like the working hours, or there's something in it for you. Just, I find it so frustrating when you talk to people at, in the pub, whatever, in a park, whatever, and they're just like, oh, I hate my job. And I'm just like, why don't you go change it then? Like, no one is forcing you to do this. There's plenty of things you're interested in. Everyone's got interests. Just go and find it. Go and do it. Yeah,
massively. I think it's such an interesting topic, but there's so many like different dynamics at play. And like, there's no real right or wrong really. But I just think surely there's nothing really more important than getting up and spending the 9 hours of your day, like doing something that you want, that you'd kind of almost choose to be doing. Like, that's, if you can do that, like, you've won, in my opinion. But
yeah, I couldn't agree more.
I think the kind of almost slightly unique challenge of I guess going to what's perceived as a good university, your expectation levels are really high, and not just from a like being fulfilled point of view. It's like financially, like there's a really high expectation to like be on a certain amount of money, like by a certain stage. And I think in a way you're almost, from a school's perspective, from a uni's perspective, and from maybe some people's parents' perspective, you're almost like this. It sounds like really inhumane, but you're almost like this investment of like, if you've been put through that process, like, come on, you should be like, there should be something to show for it. Like, I don't want you now going off and writing poetry and like not earning any income. And obviously that's a complete other end of the spectrum extreme. But I think it's such a big dilemma to like be able to find that balance of like you're trying to do as well as you can, but you're also going, no, I'm not going to settle for just a job that is expected of me that's going to pay well. Like I actually want to do something that like I feel a value and it's going to pay me well, hopefully down the line. So
yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think you're so right in bringing up sort of parents as well. I mean, I was lucky enough with my parents' attitudes towards jobs and what they expected of me, which was very little. They just wanted me to be. It sounds so cliche, but they just wanted me to be happy. But a lot of parents, it's such a rat race for them as well. Like they want to go. You know, there's parents getting. I mean, my sister's a tutor, and she tutors like kids as young as 3 or 4, and then they're all trying to go to the best schools. They're all trying to get their children to the best unis, and it's not just for their kids, it's also for them as well. You see it all the time, parents wanting to boast about their children's success, and it's like a sickness, and it makes like the kids feel so much anxiety towards achieving so much so quickly. I mean, my parents, luckily, well, mum occasionally like tries to boast about me, and I'm just like, mum, shut up, like you're actually part of the problem. I mean, I kind of let my granny get away with it because she's like 85 and she thinks I'm like head of the BBC. She's completely lost in what I'm doing. So
you can just say whatever you like and she'll just like kind of believe it, go with it. And it's
I mean, she's very sweet. I mean, age 16, she was like, Douglas, I found out this thing and it's called the Facebook. And I was like, yes, granny. And he was like, she was like, I think you should be the manager of the Facebook. And I was like, yeah, granny, that's a great suggestion. I'm going to look into that. Very sweet. But yeah, granny's very sweet. But I think pushy parents can cause such a problem for a lot of kids growing up.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's like, it's a hard issue to tackle. Like it's not, like, I think it sounds like you're I'm not going to say lucky, but like to have parents that are kind of trusting. I think it's trusting is kind of the word, because it's like trusting that you're not just going to like go and sit on your couch like all day and I think if you've gone to school, done well, gone to uni, like got a degree, and then you've gone like, no, I want to do something I want to do, like you've taken the initiative really that's like quite an empowering move to do. So really, like, your parents should be trusting of the fact that you want, but then I guess there is also like this generational thing. Like I think the world is different in a lot of ways to how it was for our parents. So like just trying to go off and start a new version of golf or like you become a YouTuber, like that means very little to an older generation who have no point of reference for that kind of career decision. But actually that can be like that's a proper career move in this day and age. So, and I'm sure we'll get onto more of this now when you go into what happened with you. But yeah, I think it's a really fascinating dilemma that I feel like our age group is sort of at the front of the wave of sort of change in terms of that career decision making.
Yeah, I think you're so right. I think parents as well, back in the day, a lot of our parents would get into a job at 22 and they leave that same job at 65. And, they were a lawyer for life. They were a doctor for life. Whereas I think now with so much more choice and so much more flexibility, people do 3 or 4 different jobs before they find what they want to do. And I think that's only a good thing, really, because the chances of getting it absolutely right and living your most fulfilled and happy life possible first time is pretty slim.
I agree completely. Fascinating. But anyway, so let's carry on from where you were. I think you said yes, you just got the masters, and so how did that go, and then how did it work out after that?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it was a really good masters. I learned a lot on it. Learned sort of basic skills on radio and sort of television editing, production, the whole works really, camera work. It sort of gave me a really good basis in pretty much everything. And probably like the best thing about it was you got to do, your dissertation was a 15-minute video on a topic of your choice, a journalistic topic of your choice. So I did homophobia in football, which was absolutely fascinating, and still a topic that's not really talked about enough. I mean, racism is right at the top of the agenda, and rightly so at the moment. But homophobia in football is maybe not just as rife, but equally alarming.
And similar
so,
themes, right? It's
exactly.
It's still about the acceptance of a different ideal.
Yeah, and that was really like a really good experience in that you were trying to find interviewees, you were trying to piece together a sort of story, as it were, but keep it journalistic. So we spoke to the Gay Gooners, which is the Arsenal gay society, for want of a better word. We spoke to people, sociologists who are experts in the field. Spoke to the vice president of the FA, who's a gay man who spoke about his experiences at boardroom level. We tried to find a gay lower league footballer that was willing to speak to us, but unfortunately, part of the problem was that there's just no one willing to really speak about it. There's quite a few. There's one guy in Sweden. There's one guy in America called Robbie Rogers. But we weren't, on our budget, we weren't going to fly out there to speak to him. And it was before the days where you thought, let's do Zoom interviews. I don't know what we were thinking. Anyway,
yeah,
what we do differently now. But yeah, it was a great experience, and kind of frustrating on the feedback of that, though. I mean, this just shows like the whole point of it. So we handed in the documentary, and the whole point was trying to, outline the issues of homophobia in football. And the review that we got, this just sums up academia for me sometimes, was, oh, it was a shame that you didn't get, this was the main criticism, was the shame you didn't get a top level footballer to come out. And I was like, did you really expect that from a student documentary? And that's the reason that you haven't given us like a very good mark. I found that so frustrating. I was like, did you watch the actual documentary? Like, anyway.
That is, yeah, I can really, it's almost like just the creative world and the academic world just fundamentally just don't match up a lot of the time. Because how you can mark that based on one person's opinion, like, it just doesn't really, that's not how journalism works, or how like any kind of creative project should be judged. But I'm interested. So what is the landscape of homophobia in football like? Because it's one of those things that you don't really think about until a magnifying glass gets put on it. But like, is it in quite a bad situation? Like, what's the...
Yeah, well, there's no professional footballer in the UK that's come out as gay. No, there's not one, which is quite incredible, really. And statistics show that there should be hundreds. If 1 in 10 men are gay, then it's just not an environment where people feel comfortable to come out. There was a guy called he still is a guy, Thomas Hitzelsberger, came out as gay, and he used to play in the Premier League for Aston Villa and West Ham in the sort of early noughties. And he came out a few years ago, and at that moment, people were pretty excited. Maybe this will start a whole, wave of people feeling comfortable enough to come out. But it's kind of part of the issue is that there hasn't been someone that's come out, and also people are so determined to find out the gay footballer as if it's some sort of like spectacle, them coming out, and it shouldn't be about
like a circus act.
Exactly. It's not them. It's not something that everyone should be able to comment on. It should be a personal decision. He shouldn't be forced to come out whenever it is. And tabloids like The Sun speculating every time that an unmarried footballer over the age of 28 must be gay, etc. It's just such a toxic environment. Luckily, I think that is changing. And yeah, it shouldn't be, as you say, I think circus is the best way to put it. But also in the stands as well, I can't remember the exact statistics because it was a few years ago, but I think it was over half of gay men have heard derogatory comments in the stands, which is pretty alarming in this day and age. But are we really that surprised when Raheem Sterling got monkey noises about 6 months ago? Like, it's bizarre. Football is I would say the best sport in the country, but it often shows the worst in society. And that was definitely one example.
I mean, like, literally going back to what we were discussing at the very start of this chat, like, the great things about football in terms of like the amazing atmosphere. I mean, there's also going to be, if you sit in the ultras end at Crystal Palace, like, you're not going to hear some of the most like enlightening sort of passages of conversation. I don't think so. It's very tribal, like football, and it's very traditional. Like it's so like, yeah, it's. I can imagine that's a really like interesting area and something that's gonna, take a lot of courage from certain people to try and change, basically.
100%. And it's always been a slow sport to adapt. I mean, I remember the outrage a couple of years ago when there was a female assistant referee called Sian Macy, who is fully qualified, just like her male peers, is obviously just as good. They go through so much vetting. And the outrage, and you heard Richard Keys and Andy Gray on Sky Sports criticising the fact that it was a female who was running the touchline. Like, and these are your broadcasters. These are supposed to be the voice of the nation, who probably do more to form people's opinion than anyone else. And there they are criticising someone for doing their job because they're a woman. Like, I was just, football can be so backward. Luckily, those two have been fired from Sky and now work for BN Sports in Qatar, where their views are probably much more widely accepted.
Yeah, it is a really interesting one, because like more recently, actually, and with the whole racism crisis there being a massive magnifying glass being put on that, is something that I've been thinking about, is actually something like, you know, racism or homophobia, or, you know, being pissed off at like a woman being a referee. Like, it's one of those things that you think, oh, I'm not someone who has any like prejudices with that. Like, there's these, you know, bigots out there who are the problem. But actually, like, when you really look at yourself and like, okay, you are potentially still that person who like goes around his mate's house and like makes a couple of jokes about it and just go, yeah, but it's just like, it's a joke. Like, I'm taking the mick out of the people that think that's a thing. But actually, like, I think a lot of people just are kind of, they're not just thinking that actually it is their responsibility to like, no, I'm not going to participate in like these jokes that are actually like pretty outdated and pretty stupid. Like, and I think that adds fuel to the fire, is like these people who are not meaning it in a very, they're not meaning it in like a personal, harsh way. It's just this kind of like insidious, like these insidious sort of jokes that people feel the need to just like keep churning out and just keep like making a thing. And I think that actually is massively the problem. So I think it's like, I've tried to watch myself just be like, what is like a vaguely, you know, homophobic joke or like racist joke that I don't mean like, of course I don't think any less of these people, but it's still like, it's the way that you communicate or joke or try and be funny sometimes about these things that actually like aren't really helping the problem. It's very easy for us, like straight white people, to just brush it off as like, yeah, we're joking, like, you know, stop being so sensitive. But actually, I think
no, you're spot on. I think I'm certainly no angel. I mean, I remember quite embarrassingly, I remember using sort of, oh, that's a bit gay, just offhand. All the time until I was probably like 16, 17, 18, really not realizing what that would actually mean for someone that heard that was gay, as if you were using it as a criticism, which I suppose I was at the time. And now I'm pretty embarrassed to sort of admit that. And it does seem so dated. So I think things are definitely changing, but you're right. Until you can police your friends and, you know, your peers, you know, you're not going to be able to police, you know, the stranger in the street, the guy in the football stands that's making comments like that, if you don't feel comfortable enough, you know, picking up your own friends. And if everyone polices their own friendship group on racism, homophobia, sexism, then I think society will be better for it.
Yeah, and there's a massively like a balance for it. Like, there's a big difference between, you know, like loading your Instagram story with like, you should all be like checking your privilege, to just like when your mate, like, meaning absolutely nothing of it, like puts up a slightly kind of misogynistic joke on a WhatsApp group and just being like, I don't know if like that's not that funny like anymore. Like, it's just like, it's not like, just don't go along with it. And I think there's a balance to be struck there between like not being like fucking like privileged police.
Yeah, for sure. There's always a line. I think it's just trying to stay on the right side of it.
You need to have a laugh, but Yeah, I think certain jokes like are just like a bit outdated now.
I couldn't agree more.
Cool. Yeah. Sorry, I've sort of gone off a bit of a tangent there, but
No, I like it.
I dig further into like so how it progressed after your masters, and then like how you landed the job that you've got now.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the masters, it was a bit like when you're leaving uni, everyone's sort of competing quite
Yeah.
slyly for the same sort of jobs. And I had this idea that I wanted to work for the BBC, Sky, BT, something like that. I applied for a job at a group called the Perform Group, which basically do so there's always production houses behind the scenes that then filter footage through to your Sky, your BT. So it's basically a production house. And applied for a job there, got an interview, sadly didn't get it, and then was sort of scraping around for like 2-3 weeks and got this unpaid job, back again to being unpaid, at this place called Kicker Media. And Kicker Media's concept was trying to interview sports stars about anything other than their sport. So you'd interview like Johnny Wilkinson about his beliefs in Buddhism. You'd interview Danny Cipriani about his beliefs in, his what he likes to cook. It was an interesting concept, but it didn't work at all. Right. It was not very. I mean, the fact that they had an unpaid intern and I was there for 2-3 months in an office without any windows. I think I should have probably noticed when I walked in for the interview, like, oh, it maybe doesn't look like it's going so well here. And the company did then fold. So I got out at the right time. But I was applying for loads of different jobs during that because I knew that I was unlikely to get a paid job there, and also didn't really want one either. It was just a good CV filler. So I was applying for loads of different jobs. I mean, I'm talking like 20 to 40 different jobs, like different applications, not getting anything back. I was speaking to journalists at the time who were lucky enough to help me out. Spoke to Mark Chapman, who's the main presenter on Match of the Day 2, who'd done my course previously, and he met me in Euston Station for a coffee. Spoke to Henry Winter, who works for the Times. I found out his email because I pretended that I had a sports story for him and then just asked for a coffee, which is quite cheeky.
Great networking.
And he was really nice, actually. So people were very kind to me, but I was a bit like, I'm back at the Chiswick calendar. Like, where do I go from here? I've got this degree. I did well in it. Like, what am I going to do now? And then, I mean, at this stage, I'd applied to Al Jazeera to be a Muslim expert. Like, I was really scraping the barrel. It was not, the walk into a job that, I mean, I wasn't expecting it, but it was far from that. So then it got to about August. Must have finished my degree in May. So that's quite a long time when you're looking for a job. As anyone who's been unemployed will know, like sitting on your boxes, just sending off applications, not ideal. And then got an interview with Football Daily, got interviewed by my now bosses, Joe and Chris, and got offered the job the next day to start in a couple of weeks' time. Told Kicker Media that, and they then were like, oh, we'll start paying you. And I was like, no, fuck that. You haven't paid me for 3 months. And, I've probably got like a lack of vitamin D from the lack of windows. Like, and now you're trying to offer me a paid job. I thought that was so cheeky. So I was like, stuff that. And then started Football Daily in September 2017. And it's just been awesome since. Like, I feel very, very lucky to be able to work for a channel that was very successful when I already joined. So it already had a big audience. I think it was on 1.5 million subs, and now it's on close to 1.8. Yeah. So it's grown, but like not as fast as they did in the old days. Like they really did well in the first 3 years of it. And so A, working for a successful place already, and B, for a company that was so willing to give a young guy an opportunity to present, to write scripts, to do all the different things that you need to do as a modern sort of journalist in digital media. So I feel very fortunate, really.
That's awesome. So can you just give like a really quick overview of like what Football Daily is and like what they do, and then we'll go on to like how it's different, I guess, from the traditional.
Yeah, sure. So Football Daily was set up in 2012, but it was in its current iteration in about 2015 when the main 3 presenters, Chris, Joe, and Pat, joined the company. Yeah. And it basically it was bought by Sky in 2017. Sky Sports bought it as part of their digital arm. So we're now Sky owned, which is great, which means we get better access to players and that sort of thing. And also now film what we call watch-alongs at Sky Sports Studios most weekends, or at least before coronavirus. Now we do it virtually. And so you get the opportunity to, basically, people watch us watch the football. It's like Gogglebox.
Yeah, I've seen some of these.
Yeah, and it's a great concept. I don't really know why they'd want to watch us watch the football rather than just watch it. But I think it's for people in countries where they don't have the rights to show it.
So is that the main feature of the channel?
It's probably the big selling point. Yeah, it's owned by Sky Bet. It's a very successful deal for the channel, really, and quite a big selling point because we're one of only 2 channels on YouTube to do it. So we do daily content, as you get from the name, which is actually a bit of a curse, really. If they had called it like Not Football Daily, then we wouldn't have to produce content every single day, and I think the quality would probably go up. But anyway, but we do like top 10 lists. We do a show called Sunday Vibes, where 3 guys sit in a pub, discuss the week's football. We do quizzes, we do previews, reviews, we do live streams, as I said, for the Champions League, for the Premier League. So we do a bit of everything. And I now work for both channels, but there's also a sister channel called Euro Football Daily, which has got about 380,000 subs. So between them, it's about 2 million. And I'm now the senior producer on Euro Football Daily. So I head up the content, come up with what we're going to talk about that week, do all the titles. Came up with a new concept for a quiz show a couple of weeks ago. So no, it's been great, and I've learned so much on it. But mainly it comes down to being given the opportunity. Like, I think if I joined a big company like Sky or BT or the BBC, like I wanted to initially, I would have been a runner for the first few weeks. I would have then been a production assistant for the first 5 years. I then, potentially might have got on screen in 10 years. I might have then got a, presenting role in 20 years. Like it's just working for a smaller company in digital media gives you so much more flexibility and an opportunity to really say what you think.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's really interesting that it's Sky owned. I didn't actually realize that, but that makes like so much sense, obviously. I really wanted to ask you more about this traditional media versus this relatively new age media. And like you obviously you've obviously never worked for like a BBC or a Sky, but you must have been applying to a lot of jobs that were in more that world. So like, how did they compare in terms of like interviewing, job roles, what you were going to have to do? You obviously just touched on like, there's a way longer process to like getting given responsibility. And I think it's really cool that you've just got this like set up by 3 guys that were just really interested in football and just love talking about it. Was it how it's set up, Football Daily?
Yeah, so it was set up by a group of guys, and they actually, to begin with, it was 6 or 7 different channels, of which Football Daily was one. Right. And there'd be a channel on movies, there'd be a channel on conspiracies. Sorry?
Like a portfolio of channels.
Yeah, exactly. And they hired basically young, enthusiastic people that were willing to put in a lot of work for effectively on a relatively cheap fee. And Football Daily really took off. I mean, digital football in 2012 was really different to what it is now. Yeah. Football Daily was one of the first YouTube channels. And, luckily they had the cash to buy a studio, a couple of cameras, but it was really quite low budget to begin with.
Did they raise money or did they have like a family?
Yeah, they had a benefactor, I think, who was this kind of crazy Canadian guy. Who was was one of these really enthusiastic guys who had a real sort of zest for life and had a lot of money, but maybe not, I won't name him now, but maybe not the most sense. So he was like, he just loved all these like young, crazy guys. Oh, you guys got so much energy. Like, yeah, film this. And they tried
startup needs.
Yeah, exactly. And they tried loads of different things and it worked. And so, yeah, in terms of the benefits of that versus traditional media, yeah, I'd always grown up watching predominantly TV. I never watched YouTube growing up. Unlike lots of my colleagues who were YouTube fans growing up, they've idolized these big YouTubers since the beginning. It was never something that I'd considered as a job in the slightest. I didn't think that my sort of vibe, as it were, for want of a better word, fitted well on YouTube. I thought I was too posh, effectively, which I did get a lot of abuse for to begin with. I thought I was too posh, too like not a YouTuber. I didn't have
more
like that sort of like that kind of like really in like energy, like in your face energy, at least. Like the really overexcitement that you see on YouTubers, where they look like they've just, you know, dropped a ton of ecstasy and then gone live. So it was a bit of a sort of learning curve. But yeah, in terms of traditional media versus digital media, I think one of the strengths of digital media is that anyone can do it, but it's also one of its weaknesses. Like, it's a very saturated environment. Like, to make a niche in it, and Football Daily's niche is always trying to be like, makes football stats accessible. So we try and give the viewer something they wouldn't normally get from watching Match of the Day. So a different depth of analysis, really, in a more analytical style, and also try and make it entertaining at the same time. But also, digital media has got so much more flexibility in this day and age. Like, unfortunately, with coronavirus, you've seen like pretty much the death of newspapers, really. And in football, you've seen in the last year, everyone's now part of, all the top writers have been poached by this company, The Athletic, which is purely digital, only online, no advertising. You pay a subscription for it per month. And I actually don't know how it's going financially, but the standard of writing is just exceptional. So all the big newspapers have lost their main football writers to this new concept. And it just shows the sort of way that football media is going. It's increasingly online. It's increasingly sort of ad hoc in terms of where you can film. But in the last 3 years, Football Daily's kind of suffered slightly in that BT and Sky are now major players on YouTube as well. You see all the highlights of games on TV. Like, everyone's clips of their main shows are going on YouTube. So it's become increasingly difficult to keep up the volume of views that we used to do. But there's still plenty of space to go around, as it were.
And yeah, by the way, there's a guy I know at The Athletic that I should link you up with, because
oh, great.
Sure, you'd have a good chat, but I will that when we're outside the ring. What I wanted to get onto was like actually the live matches. So it's also I really think the goggle box, like watching, commentating on, giving like the fan sort of view of it is cool. Like, do people watch that alongside watching the live game, like at the same time, or do they just watch that, or a bit of both?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I think a lot of people, because you can see where our viewers are, and a lot of them are in the UK, so they've got access if they wanted to watch the game. And I think basically a lot of people mute Martin Tyler and Gary Neville and instead watch us. I can't get my head around why, but they do. And basically we have, tends to be 3 pundits, 1 host, and 1 guy who fields the questions from the fans, and then we get 1 ex-pro on. So this week we had Charlie Adam, who used to play for Liverpool. We've had Richard Dunn on in recent weeks, Sean Wright-Phillips, Jolyon Lescott, and right the way up to like quite big names like Darren Fletcher, who won the Champions League with Man United. So it's not the Rio Ferdinands, it's not the Gary Linekers of this world, but it's like a tiered down of pundits. I don't want to slag them off, but they're not like the forefront of football punditry, but they're great guys, and we try and make it as sort of entertaining as possible as the end, and you end up with some pretty funny moments. Like Jolyon Lescott was slagging me off the other day for looking older than him. Yeah.
No, just before we get on to your trolling and people just taking the piss out of you for being way too posh on YouTube. So just on that topic of like, I think it's interesting to see how this concept of like watching sport live is going to progress. Like, I think just COVID has naturally had to change people's habits, and it's opened up this opportunity for people to watch, sports differently. So obviously you've got the Premier League games. There's been some on Amazon Prime, and Twitch, as well as, which is owned by Amazon, as well as on the Skies and the BTs and those channels. So I'm interested whether you know anything more about, could there be more opportunity for channels like Football Daily or people like yourself to put your own stream of these games on live and put your own like fan twist on it? And is that is like Amazon and Twitch, are they sort of competing? Obviously they're competing with, you know, the BTs and the Skies, but are they posing quite a big threat, or do you think that Sky and BT will always keep that kind of duopoly of sports, live sport?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like Sky and BT are still definitely leading the way, but Amazon, the concept of, they did it earlier in the season, they had like 3 or 4 games on at once and you could flick between them, you could go back and watch different things. It's turning into less of watch a game for 90 minutes and it's more like watch snippets of 3 games at once, is what it seems to be going in terms of football media. And I think it won't be long until you're seeing whole games streamed on YouTube, and Sky and BT, I think, are rightly, you know, slightly concerned. I mean, they've had a duopoly for so long, and Sky even way longer than BT as well. BT are a relatively new player in the game, and their success really motivates the other one. You can see that in the way that they set up their studios, the way they interact with each other. It's all with that in mind. But then there's these new rivals coming online. So it's going to make everyone up their game. I just hope that it doesn't become too much of the watch 3 games a little bit at once, because there's nothing quite like being walked through. I mean, I'm quite an old fogey, but there's nothing quite like being walked through a 90-minute game by like, you know, going through a viewing experience with a top commentator like Martin Tyler and Gary Neville. And I just feel like if you're watching little bits of everything, actually, you're never really watching one enough, if that makes sense. Like, do you ever get a full concept of how a game's flowed, who's shone in it, by just watching moments? I don't think you do. Yeah.
And I think, but then to counter that is like, for you, that's the best way of watching it. But at the end of the day, it's the consumer that decides the best way to consume their content. If they want to watch 3 games at once, I agree with you from a traditional perspective. Like, someone who's a football purist, like, that's those commentators, you know, been in that situation, they've played that game, they know from a first-hand experience what it's like, and you can see the ebb and flow of the match. And there's probably always going to be a market for that. But I think it can only be healthy that there's like, to have Sky and BT as these kind of gatekeepers that dictate the commentators, dictate the way that it's filmed, the camera angles, and all like how it's filmed and stuff. For there to be like a few more players that can go, this is how we're gonna film it. I don't know if it's just dropped out there. Hopefully not. It can only be a good thing, because there's just, you know, more competition, and hopefully, as you say, it'll up.
Absolutely, no, you're so right. I think the consumer is showing that they want the new form of doing it. I'm definitely, as you say, one of the old traditionalists in that style, and also that I think the concept of these new platforms being able to show games is such a good thing for the sort of democracy of football, for want of a better word. You don't have to be now an ex-player with, you know, having won 3 titles for Liverpool and played for X amount of years to have your view heard on football, which I think, you know, I'm obviously biased because I'm never going to make it as a footballer, and that ship has long sailed. But I feel like the strength of YouTube is that anyone has a voice, and it's also one of its weaknesses, because that's where you get into a saturation of media, and also, you know, the internet can be quite a horrible place as well.
Which brings us nicely and naturally on, which I'm really keen to speak about, is, so you've been given this, you know, channel that's got 1 million, 2 million subscribers, and so you're forced into the limelight with, you know, millions of viewers, like seeing this new guy come on and present. So, and I don't know what the average age of these viewers are, but I imagine it's probably sub 25, probably sub 18.
It's young, yeah.
that's watching it and talking about sort of some insidious prejudices. I'm sure they have. So how was that, like, just being thrust into the limelight like that? You know, what were some of the things that got thrown at you.
Yeah, I mean, to begin with, I was just a production assistant. So I was like writing scripts, I was filming some stuff, I was doing some basic edits. But over the next couple of months, I basically made it clear to my bosses that I was quite keen on giving presenting a go. And like, to their credit, they were really supportive of that. They were always really up for that. And so then in about 3 months after I started, I got my first opportunity to go on screen. And you know, everyone had warned me, like, YouTube is a pretty vicious place, and yeah, it can get quite nasty. And we'd seen that with previous people on Football Daily for their first time. Basically, these viewers, as you say, were our biggest audience is 18 to 24, but in reality, they're a lot younger than that. And they see this new guy on Football Daily. Yeah. They see this new guy on Football Daily, a channel they've watched for ages. It's, for a lot of these guys, it's their dream job.
Right.
He's very posh, he's balding, and he's got like chest hair just coming out of his eyeballs, effectively. And the combination made me quite a target for at least the first 6 months, really.
Right.
And it was like, I've come from a family where we take the piss out of each other like quite a lot as it is. Like, my brother called me Himalaya head for the first like 5 years of my life. So I was like kind of ready for it. But at the same time, like, I mean, someone said that listening to me was like having their foreskin grated. Someone said that I looked like Theresa May after 4 months of chemo. What else was there? I mean, constantly there was like, posh bald fucker.
That's actually quite funny if they could sort of channel that to something that's a little bit harsh.
It was great. It was great. Like, some of the ingenuity in the trolling was fantastic. They'd really like stepped up on their. I mean, but mainly it was just like, where did you get this homeless guy? I didn't think I looked homeless, but anyway, they really did. And then, yeah, for my first presenting, first like shot on screen, I wore what I thought was a very nice shirt. But everyone was like, what the fuck is this guy wearing his pajamas? He looks like such a knob. I actually wrote down a couple of these because I knew that this was going to come up. So on the first video that I got, there was a campaign called #DoogieOut, which was underneath in the comments. There was a lot of like, sack him. There was, this guy looks like he has 2 kids and a mortgage, which was hilarious. And the particularly one that I thought was pretty on point from the first one was, this guy needs a lot less chest hair and a lot more personality. And that was the first 6 to 8 months, really.
Like that.
But I mean, it didn't really bother me so far, as I found it very funny, and it was always a good story at, you know, when you saw your mates at the weekend, they'd be like, oh, what were you called this week? And I just reel them off and they'd absolutely love it. And also, I kind of was more concerned about whether my bosses thought I was doing a good job, which they seem to think I was, rather than what these 14-year-old little virgins behind their keyboards were saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess that is it. It's like, if that creeps into their mind and they're like, oh, like, starting to question, like, is this guy the right guy for the channel? That would then be like, oh God, like, I really want to like get them on side. But they probably knew better than anyone that that's just like the nature of the beast. Like, and imagine, imagine like a new presenter coming on Match of the Day, like the Twitter sphere. Like, I think that's the only difference, right? Is there's like not the comments like right there below the video. It's just like it's on Twitter or something happening.
Yeah,
it's just because YouTube's one of those places where like,
and you can see. Sorry, you can.
Sorry, you go.
Oh, you cut it out. Oh, sorry, mate. Carry on.
No, I was just
saying that, and you can see the amount of. Oh God, you can see the amount of upvotes. Yeah, okay. The problem with Zoom calls. This is a classic example.
Yeah, this is.
You can see the amount of upvotes as well. So like, these comments calling me like this campaign to sack me was getting like 300 votes, and there was like hundreds and hundreds of comments on this video. These videos every week, like telling my bosses to get rid of me, effectively. So unless you're quite prepared for that, which you can never really be, you know, it's quite a shock.
Yeah, I bet. And I was just going to say, like, the thing with YouTube is you've literally got an avatar as your profile. Like, it's not even, you can set your name to like football warrior or so, like who's like some 13-year-old who's like in his basement or something, and like, of course they're going to just say things that they wouldn't say to your face.
Yeah.
But
And also lots of
did it
them
affect
were
you
pretty
at all?
accurate.
Did it ever get to a point where you're like, that is actually like, I don't feel like I can relax here? Or like, and did you get to a point where you then like finally got through it and you sort of turned them all on your side and it was all
Yeah.
fine?
I mean, now it's very nice. Like I get lots of people sending me nice comments on Twitter and Instagram, a few DMs saying that they really appreciate what we do for the channel, what I do as well. So it is really nice. And it's the same people that probably 3 years ago calling for my head. So it's all a bit fickle. And in fairness to them, like they had a point. Like I was this like very posh guy rolled out of uni with this like at the time floppy balding hair and a lot of chest hair. Like I did probably look a bit different to what they were used to on YouTube, and definitely sounded a lot different as well. So no one likes change. They were very protective of their favorite channel, and they gave it to me.
Yeah, and in a way you've got to earn those stripes, and like you have been given a big responsibility, and like you have to kind of show that you're worth that responsibility, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there was the only one that kind of got to me a bit was the one that was like, Theresa May, you look like Theresa May after 3 months of chemo. Like that wouldn't normally get to me, but actually my dad had like recently passed away from cancer. I got that like 3 months afterwards, and I was like, that is just like they've thought of something really funny, and they think that's going to be a really effective like tool to make a joke about. And I would normally find that very funny, and I did at the time. I made a joke of it, but actually deep down I was just like, you would not say that if you had any idea of the sort of impact that comment could have on someone that didn't have as thick a skin. So yeah, there's definitely both sides of it, but as a general rule I always think just laugh it off, really, because they don't really mean it.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's like going back to the point we made earlier. It's like you don't know. Yeah, it's funny for you, who's never had to deal with anything in the realm of cancer, but you have no idea what the person hearing it has been through. And I think some of these issues that are coming up have made me rethink that, which I definitely before would have been like, stop being so sensitive. Like it's just a joke, but sometimes jokes can be wrongly placed. But
absolutely. I've been there myself.
What's that?
As in, I've been there myself. So when I was 18, I used to have a Twitter account called Dragon Master, and I used to like send abuse. I mean, never on the scale of that cancer comment, but I used to call Piers Morgan a twat all the time on Twitter, and Lord Sugar. I'd like pull him up when he spelled things wrong. Like I was a little grammar troll. And you could see like I used to get a lot of enjoyment from it with my 5 followers, and now so I've been in their shoes, but with the benefit of time and having matured and grown up a bit, you just feel like, what were you doing, calling yourself Dragon Master on Twitter? It's a different time.
Yeah, well, I take my hat off to you, not literally, because I quite want to keep my receding, but I take my hat off to you for taking it all as a joke, because now I'm just starting to thin very slightly on top.
Are you?
Having seen my dad's patch at the top, any comment that just even in the realm of receding hairlines, just straight to the heart.
Yeah, fair. I had to prepare for it quite early, to be fair. I mean, I saw Dad obviously growing up, and I saw my granddad on the other side, and I was just like, there's not much hope here, actually, lads, really. I don't think a Critchley male's made 30 with a full head of hair since like the 1800s. It's been a while. And I was starting to lose it. It was quite annoying, actually. I just sort of like, finished hitting puberty, probably like looked like a man now, and then all the hair started fucking off at like 18. And I was just like, can you not just give me like a couple of years of just looking normal for a second? So yeah, I was battling with it for a long time. I tried to not cover it up at uni. I was very aware that I was losing my hair, but I tried to grow it out. You always want to have a bit of a longer look at uni potentially. And then when I got to London, I cut it down pretty much all the way. Was messing around with a bit of fluff for a couple of years, but in the last months or two in lockdown, I've just gone all off, really. And actually, I think for anyone that's losing their hair that's listening, I think just like owning it as much as possible. No one really cares. They say that men care about losing their hair and women care about weight. And I can really see that, actually, because when I started losing my hair, it did kind of bother me aged 18. But now 7, 8 years down the line, you've just got to rock it, really. And it's only hair at the end of the day.
Yeah, well said. It's only hair. I think that's your best quote from It's Only Hair. So I just wanted to kind of last train of conversation, and then I want to jump into the final round where I'll throw a few questions at you. But just just kind of round it off, I just wanted to kind of ask, like, do you see what you're doing now as a stepping stone? Would definitely be downplaying it, but do you want to get back into the traditional media landscape of BBC, Sky? Do you see yourself going back in there, or do you think that like these YouTube and the new platforms are kind of the way forward, and you see yourself staying there? So yeah, just wanted to get a bit of an idea for like your aspirations, like going forward as a journalist,
For sure. I think my goal, as ridiculous as it was, and probably still is to present Match of the Day one day on the BBC. That is like my end goal. And one person gets to do it for 20 years, and it's probably going to be an ex-footballer, although that is changing. And the chances of it being me are really slim. But I'm going to go for it. Like, you might as well set yourself an ambitious goal. I'd rather set myself an ambitious goal and not make it than not set a goal at all and just plod along. Which I'm not suggesting, Football Daily is plodding along by any means, but I feel like, in a couple of years maybe I'll look to do something different. I'd love to, at Football Daily, I've had the amazing opportunity to do a lot of editing, a lot of voiceovers, a lot of camera work. But really, what gets me up in the morning is the opportunity to present and to interact with colleagues on screen and that sort of thing, and to say my thoughts on football. So I think presenting is the end goal. And if I get the opportunity ever to do that at Sky, now we're owned by Sky and they've just actually shut down our office. We were based in Oxford Circus, so we're now being brought into Sky's main building in Osterley in West London. Then it could open some doors in terms of who you can meet through that, and who knows what's going to happen in the future. So I'm very happy at Football Daily, but presenting on screen on TV is probably my dream. Yeah.
Epic. Well, that rounds off 11 very enjoyable rounds. So now we're going to jump into the final round. Ding, ding, ding. So I've got 3 questions that I want to just kind of throw at you and come up with an answer, and we'll go from there. So the first one is slightly obscure one. What did you used to believe that you no longer believe in now, or believe now?
It's a great question. I think it was that growing up, you see these people on TV and you think they know everything. You see your Gary Linekers, you see your pundits in the armchairs, etc. And you think it's such a pristine, clean shoot. Everything looks magnificent. They're so well polished. And actually, having worked in a version of TV for a while, you actually see how haphazard it is. Often people are late. The camera doesn't work properly. The printer won't print the scripts. Suddenly, someone drops out. Like the other day, I was going on to one of our watch-alongs as a pundit, and with 10 minutes to go, the main presenter's screen stopped working. So I had to present the show with 10 minutes warning, and suddenly you're just like, that must happen all the time in the real world, but you're supposed to give off like a sense of calm and that you've got everything in control, when really you don't. And in terms of football punditry as well, there's no, growing up, I knew a lot about football, but I didn't know that much more than my friends, if at all, really. What sets you apart in any industry is preparing to put in research and preparing to work hard to learn, not necessarily everything about football, but to learn a shoot. And it's just like revising for an exam. I revise for a show, and you come across with an air of calm, hopefully, and knowledge. So I think everyone that you watch on TV, it's not seamless behind the scenes. They've worked really hard for it, and hopefully they've done their research, because that's when I think a pundit or a presenter really stands out, when they know their stuff.
100%. I like that. It's like if you kind of put these guys on pedestals, like I love that you said, like, my my dream one day is to, you know, present a match of the day. Even just the mindset of it is just like, I feel like I'm worthy of doing that one day. I think it's like a really good mindset. Well, we'll see. But it's more the mindset of it. Like if you think, you know, Gary Lineker's like on this pedestal of like, he knows more than me, like he's a way better presenter and stuff. Like it can be limiting. And I think if you like sort of throw away that belief that like other people like are inherently like more talented or like better and at you than doing something, it like stops you from just kind of like really owning that career path or doing it to the best of your ability. So yeah, I like that one. Second question is, what keeps you up at night?
Oh, I mean, I'm lucky enough to be like quite a relaxed
Sunderland's transfer.
Yeah, whether we're going to sink into administration a la Wigan this week, I mean, that does generally worry me, genuinely even. But yeah, I'm fairly relaxed in terms of I don't really. I'm quite a relaxed person. I don't really have that many worries that keep me up at night. But I don't sleep well as a rule. I think I sleep well, but I sleepwalk and I sleep talk and I sleep fight. Like my girlfriend has quite a tough time with me. I got her in a headlock last year with 2 fingers up her nose. So poor Grace, like it was really quite bad. And after that, she'd been asleep. She was like petrified. So I then went to see a sleep therapist, and he's given me some, I was about to say laxatives, I mean sedatives. He's given me some sedatives to help with to get me basically into a deeper sleep quicker. So yeah, I do a lot of, like last 2 nights ago, I woke up and my washing basket was in my bed and I was sort of cuddling it. Like, I just get up to all sorts when the lights go out, really. That sounds very sexual. I don't mean it like that. But yeah, probably not the answer you were looking for. So not so many worries, but in a literal sense, I am up all night.
Yeah, I love it. A very, very physical answer to that rather than a mental one. But no, I like it. I've actually only been known to sleep talk when I've been after a big night out. So to do it stone cold sober is quite a feat. But I like it.
I'm the opposite. Drinking really helps. I barely move when I'm drunk.
You just need to get drunk more, I think, then.
Yeah.
Nice. So I think it's going to be a regular feature in unboxing is rather than having an intro song that walks you to the ring, you actually you drop the mic and then you leave the ring with a song. And I don't know whether I can actually play one on YouTube. There'll probably be some sort of copyright issue, but I might be able to put it in the podcast version. But what would be your ring outro music and why?
Yeah, I've been asked this question quite a few times just online, because at the end of every show that we do, we always do like a personal questions on YouTube. So I've actually been asked this quite a few times, and it tends to be linked to like, what would be your funeral question? That's a funeral song, sorry. And I'm actually going to go for Runaway by Kanye West. I've always loved that song, and he's just a fantastic musician. I mean, less about his views per se, but he is like, he's an awesome musician who I've always really respected in a musical sense only.
Love it. And I'm sure it doesn't like spring to mind straight away, but I definitely have heard that song. So I think it's a good like sort of boxing theme tune as well. So that plays out and rounds off this very enjoyable bout. But honestly, no, it's been really good to chat, and definitely want to like prick your brains a bit more afterwards about like the whole broadcasting, editing and stuff. But thanks a lot for giving up some time. It's been awesome to have you in the ring. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you very much. You're absolutely broadcasting natural.
No, stop it. I'll put you on a pedestal for all my life. Cheers, Dougie. We'll chat soon. Have a good day.
Cheers.